Hi guys, Fangride here, and welcome to episode 3 of the CTM podcast, Needs More Sponge. This week's going to be a little different than usual because, well, for one, it's my voice that's opening everything up instead of Dylan's. Dylan is currently moving, and BMajor is currently busy, so the only two regulars you have is me and Gerry. Say hi. Yeah. So instead of our normal little thing, we actually have two guests with us today. We have streamer and sometimes mapmaker, plus command block wizard, Man in the Hat.
Hello.
And we have daily LPer and sometimes mapmaker, as well as mapmaker for a couple different projects, Smeagolo.
Yay.
Alright, so before we get started, today is our weekly space to rant at the fact that I have not made us a theme song yet.
Why?
10 out of 10.
IGN.
Thankfully.
Alright, so let's go ahead and give our guests a little moment to introduce themselves, talk about what they do. So, Man in the Hat, take it away.
Alright, hello, my name is Jake, or Man in the Hat, or Myth, or literally anything you would like to call me. Fang seems to think that I'm a wizard with command blocks, and really I'm just okay with them. I just have a lot of evil ideas. I'm sort of like a Bond villain in that regard. I made one map a long time ago. By a long time ago, I mean a year ago, and I unreleased it because it was really and truly awful. I stream currently every single day over on my Twitch channel, Man in the Hat Gaming, and then I put up videos on my YouTube channel about once or twice a week, sometimes more often than that. I'm currently playing through Fang's map Septum Immemorial, which is in, what is it, alpha, beta?
It's still not out yet.
Still not out yet.
I think we can just skip that segment for this week.
But I'm playing that, so that's pretty much it for me. It's simple, straightforward, so.
My
Yep.
turn?
Your turn.
I'm Smeagolo. I make daily CTM LPs, and if you can name a CTM map, I've probably played it, unless like literally nobody has. But yeah, I've made one CTM map before. It's pretty much a load of crap, but it's playable. It's called Storm the Castles, and it was the first attempt at map making, so it was what you would expect. And I'm working on a second one very slowly that will hopefully be good. But other than that, yeah, daily CTM LPs and whatnot, and contributing to projects and stuff whenever. Yeah, it's just a CTM player. Other than that, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll have links to your guys' channels, Twitch streams, and so on in the description whenever this gets put together. And we'll fix the descriptions in the previous videos, Dylan. And yeah, we'll go from there. So those are our guests. And for the map that we'll be discussing this week, it's a bit of an oldie, but it's Takaro HD's Simulation Protocol 2. We're trying to find a good map that we've all at least know about or have played at some point. And Gerry and I played part of it together. I beta tested it. I played it again. Jake hasn't played it. He's flown through it, so he still knows about it. Smeagolo has LP'd it, so we all have at least some experience with it. So we're going to be talking about what we felt about this map, its design, how it could improve. Gerry's going to rant about a segment of it. Off we go. Yeah. So I really enjoyed this map as a whole. It had some problems here and there, but I found it to be generally really well balanced and a lot of really creative ideas. The monument was an especially good highlight. I thought it was a good example of what a monument area could be, both in appearance and functionality. The area he placed it was also very interesting in that it was inside of an area and wasn't intended to be accessed from anywhere else but that area. I thought that was an interesting move, and I liked the way he went about that. All of the areas, they didn't do anything super different. It wasn't a very gimmicky map, but it felt a lot more kind of like you're back to the basics CTM, Here's a cool-looking area with some themed mobs and challenging mobs. Get through it and get that wool, and blow up a couple times in the process.
Yeah, something special like in this map that I didn't notice in any other map before was the unified teleporter system.
Yes.
It was a really fancy way to go to like any intersection you wanted at a click of a mouse. Basically, you just stand on the teleporter and thought that was a nice little fancy thing to add in, and just made it convenient and fancy. It's just adds that kind of factor to the map. It's just yeah.
I also failed to understand how to use it when I was first playing it. So I stood there and tried everything except for clicking on them.
Yeah, you see this like colored chat in your chat box, and you're thinking, "What was this?"
Like, do I press 1, 2, 3? No, that's just no.
Yeah, I got lost when I was
the
doing my fly through the map, and I wound up just sequence breaking because I couldn't find the path to intersection 3, and I wound up at the Blackwool area and just flew backwards from there, and I discovered that that teleporter system doesn't work when you go through the map backwards. It doesn't work unless you get to the Wool Monument first, basically.
Yep.
So that was an interesting discovery. I mean, I don't think it would be possible ? To do that in a playthrough, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult for you to not do that.
Yeah, to make it all the way to intersection 5 without ever visiting the Wool Monument or triggering the intersection 4 teleporter, which I don't know if it would work if you went straight to intersection 4 without triggering it at the Wool Monument or not, but so I'm not sure what the exact syntax of the command blocks behind it all is. So it was very, very cool, though. I was very impressed when I realized how it worked and how it functioned. So,
yeah, it really impressed me when I first saw it because it wasn't really something I realized you could do at the time. You know, 1.7 was still reasonably new back when the map came out. So it really impressed me to see good use of new 1.7. Cat, stop tearing at the carpet, goddammit. Thank you. It really impressed me with its good use of 1.7 mechanics, with the strong emphasis on interesting use of command blocks for convenience for the player.
Absolutely.
And I'm flying through in spectator mode, so I can, fly through walls, and even though it's in 1.8, but, it's the same map file I used on my LP, so I don't really care anymore. But I also noticed that I didn't unlock the teleporter from intersection 1, so that was kind of funny, but... now I'm in the Molding Nightmares area, and this area I remember was spectacular. I mean, you walk in, you see like an overhang see the entire area with all it's a huge area with crazy detail, and these buildings are really well put together. I really like the just general shape of the area. It was really pleasing.
Every single area that I looked at when I was taking a look at was incredibly aesthetically beautiful. It was very, very well put together. There was definitely a common theme of architecture that I could kind of see throughout the map. Takara definitely really enjoys stone brick plus cobblestone wall plus fences combined together, which, depending on how you feel about it, is either a positive or a negative. For me, it's a positive. I like it sort of unifies everything together when there's similar architecture. Some people might call it a negative, but I like it personally.
I personally loved it. I thought it was a great choice, both in terms of, the design of everything, but also the way that it helped the whole map feel pretty unified, as if these were all different areas of some vast continent, and this one civilization that had spread out across it and then died.
Exactly. So now I haven't seen any of his other works. I haven't seen Simulation Protocol 1 or any screenshots from the third one, which I know is in progress. So I don't know if he has the same theme involved in those or not. I just know what was in number 2, which I have seen. So.
Yep.
I honestly think this is, I know the map wasn't meant to be some aesthetic machine of amazingness, but I think in general the map's look really helped, define it, because it wasn't a map that was intended to be super pretty, but at the same time it wasn't overlooked, and for the block choices, the way the areas played out, etc., turned out really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also did a good job of telling a story through its environments.
True.
You know, as you go through it, there's hints at this larger civilization, and there's even hints of what could have destroyed them. And I thought that was a very impressive design.
Hmm. My only real complaint that I can find without playing through the map extensively is that, and again, this may be something that is a positive for some. For me, it's personally a negative. The loot near the end of the map is he's very, very conservative with his loot, and
Yeah.
like there was a legendary sword in a box in black wool that was iron and had like sharpness 3, Bane of Arthropods 3 on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a legendary reward, really? That's
Honestly, I mean, with the way he designed the map, the loot scaling is very slim and slow, and I appreciate that personally.
that's fine. For me, it's just a negative because I feel like a really excellent map doesn't just give the player a challenge throughout, which it certainly does, especially when it's very limited on its loot, even if it is still appropriate for the mobs and all balanced. But it also does a good job of making the player feel powerful near the end.
Yes.
And while the challenge is certainly there, receiving something like a sharpness 3 iron sword in black wool
Feels a little underwhelming, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely quite underwhelming. It certainly does not give you the feeling of power. There was one area, and I don't remember which one it was. I think it was an Intersection 3 area that at the start of it, he gives you a golden sword that's one hit, and it's like plus 9,000 attack damage. So it will one-shot anything you hit, but it'll break after one hit.
I remember that.
I don't know if there's more of them to be found or not.
I believe there were a couple, and it was specifically put into that area to deal with a very strong mob in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was you can hang on to this and you can either use it whenever you like, or you can specifically save it for this creature that I'm warning you about now.
Yeah. But
I thought that was a cool design.
That does a good job of making you feel powerful because it is truly a one-shot mechanic.
It is.
I
Look
tend
at
to
a
be
mob
very
and you get
far
to
on the
erase
other
that mob.
side. And I'm very generous with my loot. But I still tend to balance mobs accordingly so that there's still a challenge involved, but I don't know. I prefer to make the player feel powerful and try and fit a challenge in there, and it seems like Takaro has the opposite philosophy. He prefers to challenge the player and, when possible, give them something to make them feel powerful. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different philosophy. So
Indeed.
there's my rant.
Yeah, I always find myself kind of sitting right in the middle. I want to give strong loot, but at the same time, I want to make sure that the player doesn't feel too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to always have the player feel as if they have to be a bit on the back foot.
Well, you can always just put in some buffed pigmen and charged creepers to take him down a peg. So
I don't trust pigmen to work anymore. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I mean, if you fix their spawners, I'll show you how to fix their spawners, Fang.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't do this until after I finish playing Septum. Then I'll show you how to fix their spawners.
Yeah, really.
I have a confession. I did not realize how thick your accent was, man.
Yeah, it varies depending on how I'm feeling. If it can go from very, very thick Texan to I didn't even know you had an accent.
Yeah, I'm sitting here like I met you a half hour ago or so. But shit, from when we started the podcast, and from then to when we started the podcast, it's like two different people.
Yeah. Or I could totally change it and do a different accent because I do voice acting as well, and I could really offend some people, I'm sure, by butchering their native accent.
It's funny though. I mean, he's not wrong. I've noticed just when you talk, the more impassioned you get, the way your accent shifts, which is kind of usual, I suppose.
So,
the more into a topic you are, you just let it out.
I don't talk so good.
Oh, Jesus.
So, getting back to the
Yeah.
map.
Oh, wow.
Have fun
Is that
editing,
even the
Dylan.
host? Eddie tries to fix things.
And speaking of the pigmen in the final area, like, holy crap, they had so much HP, and they were really
Yeah.
swarmy, I noticed. And the weapons he gives you just do not deal with these pigmen, and there's so many, and I broke so many swords on these guys, I swear. And they just keep coming at you as you go into the area. So yeah, this last area was really a problem for me, especially because of the beefed ghasts.
I totally agree.
Those were just a mess, and I don't know if I just didn't notice the path on the ground or if I was really getting distracted by all the mobs coming at me, but I just could not for the life of me find the way into the thing you were supposed to get to. And so I was just like trying to wander around getting owned by pigmen, and I died like so many times in this area. It was kind of embarrassing. And even as you go into the area, you wind up being over void anyway. So, and the ghasts are still there, and you have to really sprint along these pathways, which is really just kind of a luck-based endeavor if you make it out alive or not. Which is okay, I guess, as the Black Wool. You know, you give that kind of insane challenge as the final push to beat the map. But in this case, I think it was a bit overkill, especially with the loot balance that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. You know, talking about the buff gas kind of makes me remember something that I've been meaning to test but haven't yet, and I'm wondering if any of you guys know. Are ghasts programmed that if you return to Cinder them, you hit their fireball back, do they just die no matter what, or does it still just deal a flat amount of damage to them?
I believe it's actually just a flat amount of damage that happens to be equivalent to what their normal HP is.
Because I'm curious, I've been meaning to test and just spawn one that has like 1,000 hit points and just return to Cinder him and see if he'll just die or not instantly. So, I just haven't ever gotten around to testing it, even though it would take like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yes. When it comes to ghasts, and if you're trying to beef a ghast, like, go no further than like 1.5 blast radius, because then it just gets like it starts breaking all the stone blocks, and you think that they'll be resistant.
I kind of made a mistake and gave them Explosion Power 3, which is a normal creeper blast.
It gets pretty chaotic
happened. So I would not recommend it. 0 out of 10 IGN.
Yeah, it's funny. They gave you the ability to upgrade ghast power, but then doing it is wrong.
Yeah.
Doing it is retardedly strong.
Yeah.
It doesn't scale correctly, and it doesn't scale well at all.
Well, the only issue with it is that they the metric for blast resistance of blocks is not the same metric that's used for explosion power of creepers and ghasts. That's the only issue with it. So
yeah.
And the damage, like I remember, like just going off on a tangent here, but like I was playing through the painter, and there's this one ghast spawner that had a beefed ghast ball size, and I didn't know. And so I just walked up to the spawner, like, hey, it's no big deal. It's a ghast. I get hit once. There goes like all of my HP. I died instantly from the fall damage, and it it wrecked me for that area.
That's the other big problem is there's no real way to denote that a ghast has been changed in any way.
Yeah, like
like charged creepers have this fancy glow around them. You can tell that they're going to have a stronger blast.
You can have like fancy command block mechanics and maybe like give them some particle effects or something if you want to be fancy, but that might be lag inducing.
Mm-hmm. Now that would be a good topic for a community question for 1 week is how do you deal with buffing mobs and their like inherent data values, things that aren't visible about them, how you signify that to the player.
Yeah.
So,
do you guys think buffing mobs or even buffing weapons or items in any way, is there a point where it's too much? I know some maps go really ham with it, some almost ignore it, but what is too much?
When it takes like 10 hits to kill a zombie pigman.
Yeah, it's too much when it's just when your boss fight for the wool has just become an extended click fight. So when it's left click to win, or like
If your boss fight has more
solution-
mechanics beyond sit there and hit them for 10 minutes.
If your solution
needs to happen.
to getting a wool as a player is I'm going to lure one guy out, and then I'm going to trap him in a box, and I'm going to hit his feet.
Or I'm going to trap myself in a box and hit his feet.
Yeah,
Really works.
if that's your solution, then it's not a good boss fight. It's not a good one. So...
You know, I can't remember a boss fight that you've had to do legit, and I know that's hard to do, but I really want to see someone do a good boss fight that you actually just have to man up, go a set of balls, and do.
Hey, Gerry, I'll tell you about mine after the podcast.
Yeah. I have another one I'd like to mention to you, but I don't think I should talk about it on the podcast.
Is it Terror Store?
No,
okay.
You know which one I'm talking about. You watched the video too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just private.
But yeah, I mean, yes, we should mention Terror Restore just for you know, I mean, it had boss fights, but you had to go into adventure mode, and it was questionable, but it was done in a way that a lot of people enjoyed, I think. But you know, it still had issues.
I agree.
So,
I think its visuals were probably its biggest downfall to me. I just had so much trouble enjoying that map. I haven't tried out the second one though, and I've heard it's a lot better, so that's good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Hitting the rails, going off the rails, I think is a better way to put it. With the podcast, should I just rant at some point? Because we're
since we're talking about the layout of the map and balance of the mobs, this is probably the best time to talk about the balance of the mobs. And
all right, this
is
your
biggest problem with
jingle that. For this. You need like that set jingle. Gerry rants.
Gerry rants about maps.
Alright, you have fun doing that. I'm going to go down to the DMV and file my taxes for the next 10 years while you rant.
Sounds good.
Alright, so there's an area in the map because I played this map with Fangride and I actually finished it again today because I got bored waiting to do my exam. I wasn't a good boy who decided to study. I decided to sit there on a laptop and play Minecraft.
Clearly it taught you something valuable and opened and expanded your mind for this exam anyway.
So we went into an area. It's in intersection 2.
Correct. Right? We built our little fancy house.
Yeah, we built a little fancy house because I made Fang build a house. And
then everything went to hell.
There's this area. Fang, do you know which one it is? Like, name?
I cannot, for the life of me, remember the name off the top of my head, actually.
I don't have the map up right now. So, basically, in this area, it's giant. It leads to intersection 3. And it also turns out to be one of those areas that breaks in multiplayer.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but
the way
the mobs went like swarm lords on us, and you
could swarm the player so easily because it's a wide area, but the spawners are spread out enough to, for example, let's say Fang is 5 feet behind me or 5 blocks. I trigger a spawner ahead of me. He triggers 2 spawners behind me. There's spawners on the sides. By the time Fang gets to the wool box that we're both running to, guess who's dead? Fang, because he just got swarmed.
Gerry just waltzes in.
Yeah. So, we ended up playing, and Fang dies repeatedly. And
it was great.
I managed to get into the wool box. And I was streaming this. You could probably go find it in archives. And at Twitch TV/awesome on HHH. I had to get that.
Shameless plug.
No shame. So, what ends up happening is I've been there, and I realize there are probably 100 mobs in front of me, not exaggerating. And up in the ceiling is obsidian, and I have no tools. Do you know how long I was digging obsidian?
10 minutes later.
No. You need to add another digit, Fang, because we were there in that area.
We were there for an hour, probably.
I think we dug for like an hour and 10 or something. I think someone let us know after.
It was pretty crazy.
Just to give you an exact value, breaking obsidian with your fist is 4 minutes and 10 seconds per piece of obsidian.
And we probably broke about 15 each.
So
more than that, I would say. But we were at it forever, and I don't think that needs to happen in a map. I know maps are mostly designed to be played in single player. When you bring it to multiplayer, some issues can happen, such as lack of loot. But in an area like this, where it's so big and expensive, And it wasn't wave by wave, it was one giant wave. That was the problem. If you split it up into, even just, we'll say, 75% of that big wave into different waves, but 75% of it each time, it would have been more balanced. But by the time you got to that wall box, and this was a long dungeon, things just blew up in your face.
It really felt like it was spawner spam, and it's really one of the few areas that I've felt was pretty major spawner spam.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is almost funny because the map was generally pretty well balanced around that beforehand.
Now, just to throw this out there, I enjoyed the map. I think the map was good. And I'm not ranting saying, oh, Takara, your area sucked, because it was still a really good area.
Agreed.
You did have some unfortunate luck. My big concern is, hey, maybe 1 in 5 times it's going to happen to people. And that one time is very unfun for the player.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to happen, even though it's a little bit hard to work around. I think it's something that maybe not you, Takaro, but I think mapmakers in general should really just think a little bit more about. And especially with a lot of maps now, some will even say, don't play this map in multiplayer. And they won't give a reason. Well, here's your reason, guys. Here's this fine print that got erased because the companies don't want you to know. It's because it kills you.
It murders you.
The only unfortunate thing about putting all your warnings about stuff like that on your map is that people tend to ignore that. They just play maps in whatever damn version they feel like. They even if it breaks them completely and utterly. Hang on.
Bless you.
You know, it breaks stuff because they don't read warnings. They're like, oh, I'm gonna play it in multiplayer. I don't care. Doesn't
But
matter.
it's like a kid at a candy shop when you say, hey guys, the hardest map ever made is now broken in 1.6 plus.
Woohoo!
Oh, I felt like playing it at 1.8, Bob. Can I still buy it? Fine, Jimmy. I'll let you buy it. I
Hashtag
hope you have
Pantheon.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
3 hours later, Mom, it's too hard.
I might have gotten too good at covering up words with coughs.
Over.
Yeah, so there's that rant.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Number 2 in a series.
Yes. But yeah, so even with these problems, it was still a very good map, like we said. And I, for one, am extremely excited to see what Takaro comes up with for Sim Pro 3.
Absolutely.
You know, there's been a couple teasers here and there.
Now that I've seen it and such.
Oh, definitely do.
'cause
It's definitely worth the time.
Yeah, I looked at it, and just after looking at it, I was like, man, I wish I had the time to play this, and I don't have the time then. Maybe I'll have the time coming up soon, so hopefully I will. So, who knows? We'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you get the chance, definitely give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Alright.
yeah, so that was Simulation Protocol 2, and interestingly, and totally not intentionally, because I totally didn't design this layout at all, our community question is one that I saw in the thread somewhat recently, was, are command blocks necessary to making a good CTM map? Yes? No? Why?
Well, obviously, command blocks can make a lot of things like possible in fancy mechanics, but those fancy mechanics have drawbacks, as in like the time it takes to make them, the problems they can have, the multiplayer, single player kind of things that can be problematic when implementing them. So there's a lot to consider.
For command block clocks to break.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider when talking about command blocks, but generally, I'd say that they help if you do them right, but if you have to be prepared if you do them wrong to be to take those consequences and yeah. So in order to make a good CTM map, you don't need them, but they can help.
I would absolutely agree with you there. Which is weird for me, considering I'm making probably the most command block heavy CTM map made since like Diversity, which I'm in the process of that, and I would actually say that no, they are not necessary. They certainly can enhance things, but I think that far more important than that is at its core, it's your level design, your ability to design good areas that look good, that play well, because ultimately the aesthetics are important, obviously, because you don't want people to just stare at hardened clay or at sandstone or something for the entire map through. But ultimately, if your gameplay isn't any good, then no one's going to want to play your map. You know, that's the stuff that makes people rage quit maps, is when the gameplay isn't fun, it's not balanced. They're just like, man, this is a really garbage map. So those are the things that, in my opinion, matter far more. Can command blocks enhance it? Absolutely, but they should be used as a feature and sort of as a layer of paint onto your map, so to speak, rather than building your maps around the command blocks and with them as the core. So
short answer, no.
Short answer, no.
Yeah.
Great.
I think the keyword we have here is necessary. And
Yeah.
if you look back at good CTM maps, not all of them use command blocks at all. And I think they're, of course, they're a nice bonus, but not every map needs them. I'll give you an example here. And I probably shouldn't say this, but whatever. Fangride. How much command blocks are in Septum Memorial?
Not very many.
There's one area that come to my mind that needs them, but
There's two
that's
areas. There's two areas on
Oh,
the
yeah.
map that really need them. And in fact, one spot where three, I guess, and one spot that I should use them, I actually don't.
yeah, they're not completely necessary. Sure,
No.
they can open up possibilities, but I really think they're more
Yeah.
there to
They're great
It's
for
like putting
space
that-
saving. That's probably
It's
the
like-
best way to describe them.
think of
Is-
Christmas time, guys. You
Yeah.
you see your gift? Now, are you okay with opening up your gift without a bow on top, or do you like that bow?
Oh, I fucking love that bow, man.
I love that bow, but guess what? Would I still open that gift and would I still enjoy it and be happy about it without that bow? You're damn right.
Mhm.
That's probably the best way to look at it. Because there's a lot of things that you can do in CTMs. Like you said, in Septum, I have either 3 to 4 areas that really use command blocks for anything large, besides any sort of teleporters that exist or any sort of, spawn things that happen. Septum only has an area in I1, an area in I2, an area in I3, and 1 to 2 areas in I4 that really use command blocks in any sort of extensive way.
I would still estimate that there's probably less than a dozen in each of those, if that.
Oh, yeah. Most of them are ones that, it just allows the thing to happen. So in one area in I1, there's probably 7 of them in the area, and they just each activate the effect individually.
Yeah.
In I2, there's just 2 of them
Hmm.
that run the effect. And the 2 ones that I have for I4, they're both just activating the effects and running them. Very simple stuff. I'm not much of a command blocker myself. I use them for space saving, for teleports, to put out any sort of text that needs to be put out into your chat box, and that's really it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, get a lot more creative with it. I've started using them to spawn monsters in so that I can copy the monster and put them in a spawner, but that's really about it.
Mhm.
And then there's maps like Ragecraft 2 that use them in a lot more creative ways to create unique environments in terms of the way the area interacts with you. There's maps like Terra Restore that use them to very heavily control your player and what they have access to.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of things you can use them for, and oftentimes they can enhance an experience, but in my opinion, if you can make a good experience without command blocks, the only thing you can gain from using them, but you won't lose from not using them.
Yeah, and then going back to Jerry's his bow and his ribbon analogy, it's like you have to be careful not to use too many, because then it's like, hey, I've got my Christmas present here, and it's
covered in bows.
3,000 bows that I now have to open up and get through, and it just gets tedious. And
I totally agree there.
you know, when you can see that underneath it's probably socks underneath, then you suddenly become far less excited about digging through all of these bows in order to get the socks.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
totally agree with you
when
there.
it's just a big ball of ribbons and bows. So
Yeah, that's just perfect.
yeah,
It's a great way to look at it too, just
And think of
conceptually.
and then think of just how long the person spent, putting those bows on, just arranging them perfectly so that they would, work. But
Yeah.
then the guy opening the present is just like, wow,
Tear
I
through
don't.
it.
Ripping through it.
Yeah,
it's like
Yeah.
I appreciate the effort you went to make this and make it look all pretty, but damn, man, just
Which,
give me
of course, hilariously, the same thing can be said for aesthetics of the map, though. Because,
exactly.
I appreciate
That's
that you took the time to make it look
contradiction,
pretty,
guys.
but does it matter?
Yeah. Does it
That's a
matter
whole
if your
conversation for
gameplay
another
is
time.
garbage?
Oh yeah,
So,
that'll definitely be something we'll have to cover at a different point. Because oh
Mhm.
boy, that just
'Cause,
opens up another can of worms.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting on our checklist. It feels like we're getting around that next point. So
Yeah. Starting to.
But yeah, so I do think we all agree though is that command blocks can really heighten the experience of a map, but aren't necessary to make a good map. Now, here's another thing. Just before we wrap up,
Well, I have one
That I
more
kinda
quick
wanna-
thing real
Yeah.
fast on that same topic.
so I just want to point something out though. Is I've noticed it's very interesting. A lot of the maps that use a lot of command blocks are often the maps that end up with a lot of exposure because people are used to good aesthetics,
mhm.
but they're still not quite used to extensive command block usage.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting that right now, that heavier amount of command block work is something that really can help a map on its exposure if it's designed well.
Yeah. The only thing that I might say is a necessary command block usage is teleporters. In this day and age, if it's like CTMs continuously are getting bigger and bigger and larger, and with that in mind, teleporters are just kind of necessary at this point. I mean, yeah, you can, if you have insanely good level design, and I mean insanely good, then maybe you can make your stuff wrap around on itself to the point where all it takes is a 30-second 30 seconds digging through a wall with a pick you give the player, and then just a railcart ride back to backtrack to whatever. But very few people possess level design that good, and most of them who do are certainly not making CTM maps. They're getting paid, $80,000 a year to do it at BioWare or somewhere. So
Yeah.
I think
That's
that
true.
at the very minimum, teleporters to past intersections, teleporters to the Wool Monument, things like that are just kind of necessary.
Yeah.
Just
I totally agree
because
with you on that.
nobody wants to spend, no one wants to spend the hour and a half it takes to get through an area and conquer it and be like, yeah, this feels good. Now it's time to spend 45 minutes walking back.
Yeah. It's a pain.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not fun because there's no challenge on the way out. So if you're gonna make
So-
an area that large, just inside the fleecy box or right outside the back of it, here, have a teleporter back to the start of the area. It's a one-way teleporter, so take the wool with you.
Or at the very least have, an alternate path out that you couldn't see on the way in.
Yeah,
That'll provide an interesting way for the player to go if they still want a little bit of challenge.
and hey, speedrunners. So
Yep.
yeah,
Just to add on to that a little bit, more of an example is it's very interesting to purposely try to design a map with that kind of wraparound ability, and it's actually something we're aiming for with Titan's Revolt, which
good.
might surprise a lot of people because layout of the map wasn't something we really cared about in Pantheon.
Yeah. So
But I've found by and large that teleporters are really the most valuable thing a command block can offer because they're easy to use
mhm.
for designers, You don't need any sort of fancy knowledge to put them together. Just know how to type /TP at P or at all.
Mm-hmm.
And, use them. Set them up. Give your players some convenience.
Yeah, they're so easy to use that if you have areas that are that large, there's no reason not to have them at all.
Absolutely.
None whatsoever. I mean, unless you're Takaro and you have the fanciest goddamn teleporter system ever created, then I guess, okay, we won't use normal command block stuff. We'll use Takaro's system, which I'd be fine with if he'd make a damn schematic of it and send it out. I'd be like, yes, please. But
absolutely,
until that happens, Takaro, we'll just stick with command blocks and buttons and pressure plates. So,
indeed.
All right, well.
Well, I think that leads us right into a proper wrap up and kind of sums up, a lot of what this podcast episode was about. Is it easier to stay traditional, or is there a benefit from going all fancy and all out? And the different styles that you can come across with different CTM maps, and how that doesn't always affect your gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we covered a lot of really interesting discussion here, both about the Simulation Protocol map itself, and about just the use of command blocks in modern CTM gameplay in the first place.
Yeah.
So, good work. And before we head out to the end, our Moustache of the Week, as always. This week, in honor of Super Troopers 2 finally being confirmed, we have Jay Chandresekar, I believe is how it's pronounced.
I believe that's close enough.
Sounds about right. And we have a fancy image that we will send to Dylan to put into the background of this podcast, since I think I'm the only one with it actually sitting open in front of me right now.
Well, I
it's
took a look at
beautiful.
it. I just had an entire Google image search full.
I did too.
I just searched Super Troopers mustaches.
Oh, that works.
And I was like,
Yeah.
here we go. Who wants a mustache ride? That's not the one I want.
I searched his name, and of course he doesn't have a mustache now. So
Yeah.
that, of course, made it awkward. You're like, yeah, let's choose him, and I looked him up. I'm like, he doesn't have a mustache. Oh,
He's gonna have it for Super Troopers.
of
so
course.
When they come
Yeah.
back.
It's a glorious mustache and a glorious film. So
I think they're right now at like
Excited.
$4.5 million raised, which
yeah,
they
it's
normally
insane.
were asking for $2 million, and they're at like 4.5, and they still have a couple of stretch goals left to be made. So
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I played that last night for people, and it was awesome.
yeah.
Some people had never seen it before. It was very sad.
Really?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the movie came out in 2001, so
That is true.
if you're less than 14 years old, or if you're only 14 years old, the movie's older than you. So, there were some people who watched my stream who were, 13, 14, even though my stream is marked 18 plus, they still come in. But whatever. And they were watching it, and they're like, I've never heard of this movie. This is hilarious. I told them, don't do anything you see here, especially chugging the maple syrup.
Yeah, usually you want to drink it a little bit slower
Yeah.
with some alcohol
Mm-hmm.
and waffles.
Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the waffles, but those are
Alcohol
optional.
helps. Yeah.
So you're a waffles man, Fang? We can't be friends anymore.
I'm a pancakes man too.
Oh,
As
there
long
you
as you
go,
can put
okay.
syrup on it, I'm happy.
Waffles are just pancakes with syrup traps. So. Alright,
Yeah.
well,
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this edition of Needs More Sponge, the CTM podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you guys next time we roll around. We haven't quite decided on what map we're going to be discussing next time. There's a couple that we wanted to touch on, but we'll decide in the meanwhile and
we'll
find some
discuss
way to let
Septum.
people know. Yeah, I mean, hey, we did do that segment earlier. Though that's another reason to check out Jake's YouTube channel here. Is while Septum is not out, he is playing it. He has a copy of it and is playing it. So if you want a little sneak peek,
I'm currently
Check that out.
breaking the map, so
Yes. You have like 100-something, 200-something ender pearls right now.
more than that, I've been farming my ass off.
Now the real question is, have they been any help yet?
I haven't done anything else yet. I've just been farming.
okay.
I haven't recorded a new episode.
Because
I have a double chest of nothing but ender pearls, Fang.
jeez.
Yes, I have a
But
double
yeah,
chest of ender pearls.
This is almost funny, but ender pearls are so useless in most of this map.
Not gonna be useless to me. I don't care if I can't use them in an area. I will use them as a mode of transportation.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. It's just most of Septum is interiors, so there's like not many places with wide spaces.
I will teleport down a hallway, 7 blocks ahead of me.
Oh, I mean you have them so many, it's like a disposable resource anyway.
Yeah.
Go for it.
The only thing that's not disposable is the fact that I take two hearts of damage every time I do it. So
that hurts a little bit.
I don't have feather falling boots anymore. They broke.
Yeah.
So.
All right, though. Yeah, we got a little off topic in the ending part here. So, yeah,
Waffles.
that's the podcast. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening. I have been Fangride with Gerry, Man in the Hat, and Smeaglo. Toodaloo.